Georgia's governor came under scrutiny this week after announcing plans to roll back lockdown restrictions. Governor Brian Kemp says certain businesses will be allowed to reopen as soon as this Friday. An updated model released by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington says Georgia should not reopen until June 19th. Now, a number of local leaders and businesses there say they're concerned about reopening too soon. For more, Greg Bluestein joins me now. He is a political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Greg, thanks very much for being with us. Tell us more about the governor's plan to reopen Georgia's economy and what the guidelines entail.
Yeah, the governor said that Georgia is on track to meet the federal gating requirements to start releasing and reducing restrictions that he imposed during the lockdown. And what's going to happen starting on Friday is that tattoo parlors, barbershops, nail salons, and other close contact businesses that he closed in early April are going to be allowed to resume operations if they meet a number of state guidelines like improved hygienics, screening employees, having life-saving gear and protective equipment available if necessary. And then on Monday, restaurants that were banned from dine-in services, all restaurants in Georgia were banned from allowing dine-in services. They'll be allowed to resume operations of that starting Monday with guidelines that still haven't been released by the state. So it's causing a lot of confusion, a lot of concern, especially in Metro Atlanta, where many of these restaurants and businesses say they will not reopen on Monday or on Friday.
Right, and you have to wonder, are there going to be customers that feel comfortable enough to come into some of these businesses as well, which, as you note, are in many cases these close contact businesses. I mean, is it clear that these businesses are going to be able to adhere to all of these guidelines? What should people in Georgia expect to see from their local shops?
Yeah, look, I mean, unless you have a 6-foot needle, if you're a tattoo artist, you can't socially distance if you're giving someone a tattoo. Same thing with barbers. Same thing with nail salon hygienists. So it's a real tough situation. A lot of them are in. Now in Metro Atlanta, as I mentioned, there's a lot of pushback. But today I went to a county in central Georgia where you can already see people are getting ready to reopen barbershops. They're getting ready to reopen nail salons. I talked to the owner of an ice cream shop who is painting his deck, sort of getting ready to reopen the ice cream shop fully on Monday. So they're already seeing a lot of excitement in sort of sparsely populated parts of the state, while Metro Atlanta city mayors and mayors of urban areas around Georgia are pushing back hard, basically telling residents to ignore the governor's directives.
Right, and we'll get to some of that in just a moment, but reporting from your colleagues indicates other Georgia officials were largely left in the dark. What do we know about who the governor consulted before making this decision?
Yeah, that's been another major issue here, is that the governor assigned a coronavirus task force to help give him guidance, to help inform his strategy to respond to the pandemic. And we reported yesterday that many of the key leaders on that task force were left in the dark, were blindsided by this move, including Atlanta's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. She is a co-chair of one of the task forces, of one of the committees on the task force. Bernice King, the director of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center in Atlanta and the daughter of the civil rights leader, is also a co-chair of another committee. And she said she's considering stepping down because she found out about the governor's directive from a text message from a friend. So she was very upset. And you're hearing from also some Republican officials on that committee who said they weren't told either, but they understand that this is a fast-moving decision. The governor doesn't necessarily need to clue them all in.
So Atlanta's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms spoke earlier with my colleague Rena Nine, and let's play some of that sound.
But when I look at our city, and I know that we have some of the highest asthma rates in the country, I know that beauty shops and barber shops on every corner in the African-American community, I know that this is going to be deadly for many in our community. And what I've said is I hope that the governor is right and I'm wrong. Because if he's wrong, more people will die.
So, Greg, what kind of authority do local leaders have here? Can local officials do anything to stop their cities from reopening?
Not much. The governor's statewide mandate supersedes any local restrictions that go beyond or are weaker than what he's ordering. So that means the mayor basically can only use her bully pulpit to encourage Georgia residents, Atlanta residents, to not heed his directives, but she can't enforce it. She can't ask her officers to disperse and to close down businesses. It puts a lot of, and not just the mayor of Atlanta, but a lot of local officials in Albany, Georgia, and Southwest Georgia. We have one of probably the state's biggest outbreak right now, and the mayor of Southwestern Georgia city is also pushed back strongly, as well as the mayor of Savannah, the mayor of Augusta, other kind of denser populated areas are really trying to fight this.
So primary day is June 9th in Georgia, and we know that in-person voting in the state of Wisconsin has been linked to around 20 coronavirus cases. So how are election officials in Georgia preparing?
Well, they're trying to do a vastly expanded mail-in program that will kind of set a new standard for how Georgia elections can be undertaken. At the same time, you're seeing lawsuits trying to delay the Georgia primary even further. A voting rights group filed a lawsuit just this week trying to get another 3-week delay and a ban on using touchscreen machines. The state Democratic Party has not signed on to that effort, but they've called for more precautions, more safety measures. The Secretary of State and state election officials say they're doing everything they can to make sure the state has a safe vote. But clearly, even though there'll be an expanded mail-in ballot program, there'll still be droves of Georgia voters that won't use it and that will still want to show up in person to cast their ballots. And look, in Georgia, as in many states, the average age of poll workers is in the 70s. And so that's been a major concern. It was another reason why the state's late March primary was delayed not once, but twice.
Right, a highly vulnerable population there, the older people that are oftentimes, as you note, those poll workers. So experts we know say that robust testing is absolutely key to reopening states. Is it clear whether or not Georgia has an adequate testing infrastructure in place?
Georgia is in the bottom half and really the bottom tier in states among per capita testing. The governor insists that's starting to change. He announced this week an expanded partnership with Georgia's higher education system to roll out more tests. And he also unveiled a contact tracing program that will allow folks to follow and more adequately figure out who's got who people who have got in contact with have the disease. But that requires a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and a lot more funding, a lot more training. And it's not clear who yet is going to staff those efforts and how widespread they would be. Public health experts insist that Georgia is not ready to open, does not have the adequate testing, while the governor says that's starting to change.
Right, all of this, as public health experts say, any promise of a vaccine is still potentially at least 18 months away. Greg Bluestein, Greg, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.